right, welcome everybody to another episode of the Commanders Film Room. I'm one of your hosts, George Carney, with my co-host Mark Bullock. We're here for a surprising Friday episode of our Commander Film Room post-draft with our selection of Sonny Styles. So we're going to be breaking down him on the All-22. Please give us a like and a follow on YouTube at the Big Doug and Carmi Show. Please subscribe to Mark Bullock's Substack. He has great content, great work, where we find a lot and pull a lot of information over there. And without further ado, Mark, what a great, exciting day yesterday, right? The NFL draft. I know you've been doing a lot of work, a lot of write-ups, a lot of film watching. It culminated with the draft yesterday. Very exciting. A lot of unexpected trades on the top of the board. We'll kind of shelve the Commanders for now, but I guess your initial takeaway, like, what did you pull from the first round? What were some big surprises for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like every year in the sort of week building up to the draft, it's, we're going to get so many trades, and sometimes there's a few, and more often than not, like last year, I think there was no trades until like the 15th pick or something like that, and it was like, it's a bit of a letdown. So I kind of thought that was what was going to happen again this year. It was going to be like there's smoke about every trade, but every team wanting to trade out. I'm like, well, who's actually going to trade up? And then there was quite a lot of trades, and especially, in the latter half of the first round, I think there was 8 trades in a row to end the
interdivision trades too. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that is absolutely nuts. And I think I heard something. I think Schefter put out something like 8 teams haven't made a pick yet.
Wow,
this round, which is crazy. So that was obviously a standout. And then, I know the rumor the whole week was the Cardinals were going to take Jeremiah Love. I just did not buy
Me neither.
They were going to do it. I thought that was all smoke trying to trade out, and I just thought, they are not in a position where they are ready for a running back to drop in and put that team over the top. They're just not good enough, and so that it kind of sucks because Jeremiah Love is a lot of fun to watch, and it feels like he might be a bit wasted there. But who knows? Maybe LaFleur will turn things around over there, and he'll be a key piece of that. But yeah, that was a surprising one. And then Carnell Tate going 4 as well. I thought Tate would be probably the guy Washington picked. So for him to go 4 that high, I don't think anyone had seen or linked him to the Titans at 4. So yeah, that was a few of the big surprises among many others.
No, I think you nailed it. I think what was one of the more unpredictable drafts that I've seen in many, many years. I did not expect Jeremiah Love to go to the Cardinals. I thought that was smoke. I thought the Cardinals wanted to trade back. I thought they were kind of lingering and fishing that out there. Maybe they're trying to sell tickets. Maybe that's an owner's pick. They just want to get some butts in the seats. I do agree. I'm disappointed a little bit because obviously I wanted Jeremiah Love potentially on the Commanders. But then, too, you're right. He's such a great special talent, and that team doesn't necessarily have the luxury of drafting someone like that because their offensive line's kind of struggling. They have a quarterback in transition. It might not be the best usage of his talents there. Arvell Reese falling to the Giants, Caleb Downs going to the Cowboys, Mekhi Lemon going to the Eagles. The NFC East is restocking. It's going to be really intriguing, very fun arms race that we're going to be watching this upcoming year. And, the last one was the Chiefs moving up from 9 to get to 6. I thought they were going to steal Sonny Styles. I was definitely sitting on my, eggshells there. I always thought that Washington was going to take Sonny Styles or Jeremiah Love with either one, whatever fell to 7. I didn't think either one would be there, and I thought Tate would be the realistic option. But here we are, Sonny Styles, and we have a great one of the arguably a blue chip talent, one of the most athletic linebackers in the league on our team right now. That being said, Mark, Sonny Styles, stylistically, I'm trying to be punny here, right? Where does he fit here in Washington? He's, he can do everything, right? I think we kind of envisioned him as a middle linebacker, but he has the potential to drop back in coverage. He has the potential to blitz and kind of create some edge pressure there. I know you say the film. Where do you kind of see him in Washington, and how does he change the identity of a Durante Jones defense?
Yeah, I think he fits in really well because, as you said, he's very versatile. He can bring a lot of things to the table, and so he could fill a variety of different roles. You could just say plug him in as the Mike linebacker day one and say, hey, this is going to be our guy for the next 10 years, which I think is probably the way they're going to go. But if they want to, bring him on slowly, or if they want to use him in different ways, they could play him kind of next to the mic as their will and take that kind of pressure off of him of not having to call the defense straight away, or they even put him on the edge sometimes and move those guys around, because all the guys that they have at linebacker now with Luvu, Chanel, and Styles and Jordan McGee as well, they're all really flexible. They could all play all those spots, so that brings a lot of versatility. So I think They could go in a lot of different directions, but I think ultimately what they're going to do is they're going to stick him in there as their middle linebacker, as their Mike linebacker, and hope that he can lock down that position for the next 10 years. So
yeah.
yeah,
We'll jump into the film in 1 second. I'm very, very intrigued. I do want to see where he goes because I do think he's multiple clay, right? I think he does have the ability just to be a middle linebacker, but I'm hoping that this Durante Jones, Brian Flores lineage defense is creative and kind of maximizes his talents because I do think there's a lot there. I do think he could drop back in coverage. I do think Washington's defense will be pretty multiple. I think they'll have a 3-4 base. Might be a 4-2-5, might be a 5-2. We're going to see some really interesting things, and I hope Washington kind of deploys all of that. So that being said, let's walk through it, Mark. I'm going to hit the music. I'm going to hit play, and we can get going.
Sure. So we'll start with well, I'll break it down into a few sections. So we'll start with the run defense, then we'll come on to the coverage. We'll look at a little bit of the blitzing, and then we'll look at maybe a little bit how Durante Jones might want to use him with some Vikings film at the end. But cool. If we have time for it, but we'll start with the run defense because I think when you think about a linebacker that transitioned from playing safety in college, you typically think about these guys that are 6'2", 6'3", 220 pounds. They're really athletic. They're really good coverage linebackers, but when it comes to playing the run, they're a little bit lacking. They're good run and hit defenders, but they're not guys that can take on those big 300 pounds offensive linemen and stack and shed them and make tackles. And I've seen this be a bit of a knock on Styles, but I just don't see it as a knock on him. There's the occasional play where he might get caught on a block, but I think you can put that down to, he's a guy that's only been playing linebacker for 2 years. So you see a dramatic improvement from him even just throughout this season. And so I thought we'd go through some of this and see that he's actually a really physical linebacker, willing to get onto blocks and shed blocks and take on those bigger linemen. So Mark, we'll have go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. How were you high on Sonny Styles, like pre-draft? I know you told me you were going through multiple prospects. I was kind of curious, like, was he on your wish list potentially for Washington?
Yeah, I thought out of the realistic guys that were going to be there, I thought it was going to be Styles, Love, and Tate were the top three, probably in that order that I thought Washington would have wanted. So yeah, I thought he was probably going to be the best player they probably could have realistically got. So so I was definitely high on him. And yeah, so we'll look at the run defense and we'll look at the physicality part of the run defense first, because again, this is not something you see from a typical safety converting to linebacker. So we've got here just a wide zone run scheme. This was in the championship game against Indiana. We got the right tackle is going to try to climb up and seal Styles off. And what you've got here is a front that you might see in Washington where it was a 4-down front with Arvell Reese was playing linebacker next to Sonny Styles, but then they shifted down to what some people would call a penny front, where you've got a 5-1 front where Reese is on the edge. And you can think in Washington, this might be like a, Frankie Louva or Leo Chenal could do this kind of shift down to the edge. Sonny Styles can even do it himself, but we'll get to that later on. But what that means is that he's the only linebacker on this second level of the defense. So if this right tackle is able to climb up and get him and you get a kick out here, you've got a big lane that the running back's going to run straight through, and it's going to be a big gain. So there's a lot of pressure on Styles to get off of this block. And as we see it running through, you can see that right tackle gets up and actually gets that kind of outside leverage on Styles, being able to pin him inside. And at this point, you can already see where that gap that the running back's going to be aiming for is right there. But Styles does a really nice job. He sees what the problem is, and you can see right here, he does well to get his hands inside. He gets his hands on the chest of the right tackle, and that allows him to kind of shove him off, push him back, and then he's able to, you can see here, he just drops his hands and kind of pulls the tackle off balance, pulls him forward, and then that makes him able to kind of use his athleticism to kind of skip by him and shed the block. And then he emerges in the hole. The defensive tackle inside does a pretty nice job helping out. But you'll see a really strong tackle here from Styles. The kind of, this is an arm tackle from the defensive tackle. The running back's starting to run through it. He does not run through what Styles does to him. Styles just stands him right up, moves him backwards, and makes the stop. So that's one example of him being really physical against the right tackle. This time, it's another wide zone scheme from that same sort of penny front where you've got Reese down on the edge with the 4-down lineman, and this time you got Caleb Downs in the box to kind of help, but you're one linebacker in the middle, and it's another wide zone, but it's from the gun, so that changes the angles of everything. And you've got the center that's going to be the one that's going to climb up to him. So the center is typically not as athletic as the right tackle, but sometimes a little bit bulkier and harder to get off of. But you'll see what happens here is, as this run progresses, the center climbs up. Styles understands, okay, that center's climbing up to get me. If he gets to the play side and seals me off, that's a big issue. So he uses that athleticism that everyone talks about to make sure he beats the center to the spot, doesn't get cut off on the backside, and then again we see he gets his pad level under that pad level of the center. More importantly, gets his hands inside on the chest of the center, and that allows him to kind of, you can see he extends his arms, pops the center up, stacks him up, and then you can see, okay, I can get my eyes in the backfield. I can see the running back is working out here, and there's a bit of a lane here, so I can disengage from this block and go make that tackle, and the running back didn't really want any of that. But again, it's another example of him willing to be physical with blockers, and take on offensive linemen that are bigger than him, and shed blocks. And one more example again from, I think this is the same Indiana game that we saw earlier. This is a GT counter. Commanders fans should be familiar with this. The past couple of years, they've seen plenty of this. You're pulling the right guard here. He's going to kick out Reese on the edge. You've got the right tackle following around, and the tackle is going to try to loop around him and block Styles. And Styles is in the middle, but he's, again, the one linebacker here, and you're pulling two linemen, so you're moving the gaps, and that makes it really difficult, especially when you've only got one linebacker. But Styles, what you'll see here is, as this play progresses, this is actually a really good look for the offense, because in theory, you have this guy coming across to kick out Reese, and this guy's going to come and wrap around for Styles, and that's going to create a lane inside, especially as this defensive tackle initially is getting pinned inside, right? But what happens is Reese does a really nice job on the edge. He closes that gap and kind of squeezes it shut. And then as the tackle pulls through, Styles follows that up by closing that even more, and he gets really physical. He pops into this tackle, as you'll see here, pops into him, and between Reese and Styles, they shut that gap. And this is an example of where you have two safeties back deep, so you're light in the box in terms of gaps. So you have to find ways of clawing back a gap. And if you have two defenders that can shut a gap that you currently have no defender available for, by squeezing those blockers like Reese and Styles do here, that means the running back has nowhere to go, and they're able to make the stop. And it's actually Styles that is able to wrap him up and make that stop.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. As you kind of alluded to, there is one true linebacker that's stuck on the box, and the penny look. In theory, the potential for that one little split moment, the Hoosiers had a number advantage to take advantage of that, but he got in there and blew it up. One thing I do like about Sonny Styles, I think is an underrated component of his game, is they kind of note the physicality that he has, because he is a physical freak, but I think he's a cerebral player as well. It seems like he has his vision downfield. He seems like he can close the gap pretty well. And from what I understand, he has that advantage over Arvell Reese. I think Arvell Reese is more of an edge, more of a pure fast twitch guy, but Styles is more cerebral. So it's good to see that.
Yeah, and I've got some plays to show some of that cerebral ability and that kind of instincts in the run game as well. One more just example of him being physical, just to kind of dispel those rumors of him not being a physical run defender. This is another play from that same game. This time the left guard's going to pull and wrap around. It's a power play, so he's going to wrap around and try to block Styles. Again, he's the one linebacker here, and I'm just going to let this one run through. You'll see he just goes and gives this guy a good thump, goes and works off of that block, and goes and makes that stop. So again, he's a very, very willing and physical run defender. He's not afraid of taking on linemen and making blocks, which when you talk about, again, a linebacker that converted from safety just 2 years ago, those kind of profiles typically are guys that lacking in the run game. They kind of don't want to get involved in those scraps with bigger linemen, because they know they're not going to win. Whereas Styles is a little bit bigger. Obviously, he's 245, 250 pounds, whereas those other guys are typically around 220, 230. So he has a little bit more bulk to him, which helps. But he's also just much more willing to be physical and violent with those linemen and go and pop them and stack them up, and that enables him to shed those blocks and be physical between the tackles, as opposed to those other guys that are just kind of run and hit guys and kind of get lost in the traffic on those inside runs. So that's one big trait that I wanted to highlight. but he's also, he's not just a guy that's willing to be physical. He's still a really good athlete, and he's still, as you say, a really cerebral guy. He understands, the different kind of run schemes that are running to him, and how to mirror where running backs are trying to go, and where the blocks are coming from, and where that means the scheme's going. So this example here is a really nice job of him mirroring what the running back's doing. It's kind of a duo scheme where you're getting this. The guard is going to kind of run downhill at him and try to block him and pin him inside, and the back's kind of working inside and reading off of him. So we'll run this through, and he kind of helps out the right tackle and then comes up to try to block Styles. And Styles initially makes his first movement up towards the line of scrimmage. He kind of sees this guy coming, and he sees the back, and he kind of is reading, like, where's the back going to go? Because the back at this point could try to bounce this outside, try to hit one of these holes, or try to cut it back to the other side of the line of scrimmage. So he's kind of holding his position, waiting for the running back to declare which way he's going to go. And once that running back starts to make that first declaration, it's like, okay, he's got the ball, and he's starting to, you can just see right now, he's just leaning this way. He's trying to hit this gap between a guy that's come on a jet sweep to kick out and his right tackle. So he's trying to hit that gap. But the issue is this guard is coming up to try to block him off. So we've seen him be physical and get into guys and try to be physical and get off those blocks, but he's also a pretty good athlete. So he can also just make a nice little quick move to beat a guy with a little juke like that and go make that play. So good bit of athleticism there. The athleticism, again, on this one is another nice example. It's a wide zone scheme to the left. And on this one, again, you see a lot of linebackers will see this zone action, that there's a lot of misdirection here. You got a jet sweep going one way, you got a sift block from a tight end coming the other way. There's a lot of things going on. And you see a lot of linebackers will be passive and not sure what's going to happen, or they'll just be reading wide zone. I need to get over the top of this and stop that getting to the edge. But Styles plays it patiently, reading the running back. You can see, like, we get to this point and you can see, okay, there is quite clearly a cutback lane potentially emerging here where, he's got these guys filling their gaps properly on the outside here. He can be patient, and he can see that the running back's thinking, I'm just going to cut this back behind this right guard. And so he starts to cut this back. And as he starts to cut this back, suddenly Styles emerges in that lane, and it's okay, that lane is not going to be there. And Styles gets there so quickly that the back actually has a chance to go, okay, I can't cut this back where I was going to. I now need to try to bounce this back to the outside. And some linebackers in this situation wouldn't be quick enough or athletic enough to kind of slow themselves down here to be able to make the tackle, and then have to get themselves started back up to chase the running back as he bounces outside. But Styles has no such issues. He's long, athletic, gets that guy chased down and pretty quickly and brings him down.
And Mark, to that end, I think you nailed it. I think, like, you can tell who's a superior athlete on the field. Like, maybe in other breakdowns or other linebackers, maybe more overcommitted and maybe kind of sell out on the run to get to the wide side of the football field. But because Sonny Styles is such a good athlete, he can be more patient because he knows that he has that extra gear in him to potentially pursue that running back. So exactly right. Like, he was kind of watching, waiting, knowing that he could and potentially jump and pursue. And just, that closing speed was pretty impressive on that running back right there.
Yeah, exactly. And right, one more in the run game. This is just one of my favorite plays from him, and this is a jet sweep, which is technically a run, but it's kind of a misdirection thing. And you got the slot receiver coming across on a jet sweep, and Sonny Styles just does a great job of diagnosing it, understanding what's happening, and he just runs and hits it. So I'm just going to let it run through, and you just see he's just so quick. He just runs straight through. He identifies what's happening, and guys aren't going to get there, and he's going to make a tackle for a loss. And you can tell he knows what's coming. You can see it happening. Like, you can see Caleb Downs here was over the slot, and he's not reacting as quickly as Sonny Styles, who sees it happening, and he's the first one to react, and he knows, like, hey, I'm just gonna this left tackle, is not gonna be able to cut me off if I hit this as soon as I go. And he does. He gets straight through, knife straight through, and then goes and makes a really nice tackle for a loss. So yeah, you've got a very high upside run defender. I think there is still some examples where you see that he is a little bit inexperienced as a run defender, where that conversion from being a safety to a linebacker is still processing a little bit, but you saw gradual improvement over the season, or a pretty significant improvement over the season. And I would expect that would continue as he has more and more reps playing linebacker, and especially being coached by a guy like Ken Warden, who's a very experienced linebacker coach and has coached some pretty good ones. I'm not concerned about that. There are some, as I say, some plays where you see him get caught out by a misdirection or he hits the wrong gap or whatever, but that I put that mostly down to just inexperience.
Yeah, novice who's growing in his position.
Yeah.
Would you say his run defense is probably his strength, his maybe strongest attribute? Because I think you keep hearing that one statistic that keeps popping out. They didn't miss a tackle throughout the year. I think his athleticism allows him to track running backs down. I'm sure he's good at coverage too, and I think we're about to highlight that now. But I'm curious, does that stand out to you? The running back?
I wouldn't say it was his best attribute. Okay. I would say he's probably higher up as a coverage defender than a run defender, but I'd say he's pretty high up in both aspects, right?
Okay.
And you have to be if you're going to be an off-ball linebacker that's getting drafted top 10. So
absolutely.
I'd put him as a better coverage defender right now, but I think potential for him to be a very good run defender. Like he already is a good run defender. I think potential for him to be an excellent run defender is there once he kind of learns the position a little bit more and gets a little bit more experience.
And that's welcome news, right? We've been following Washington for years. We've been studying film for years. We've been doing breakdowns last year where there weren't any coverages as part of our linebacking core. I think just having a strong coverage linebacker that can grow into a good run defender is more than welcome around here. So we're good with that.
Absolutely. Right. So let's get into that coverage then. There's a lot of things to go over with him in coverage. So we'll just start with an athletic standpoint, the amount of ground he can cover. Obviously, everyone's talked about the RAS score, the 9.99. I think the fourth out of something like nearly 3,500 linebackers they've ever graded. He was the fourth ranked linebacker. So incredible athlete, and that shows up regularly, especially in coverage. And you quite often see, the athletic coverage linebackers don't have necessarily the instincts because they can just get by on their athleticism, but he has the instincts. But we'll start first with just the athleticism. So here we've got slot receiver running just a basic cross over the middle of the field. Styles is actually going to bite up on a play action fake and probably bite up a few steps more than he should. He's probably a little bit late to turn and run back to this, but you just see, he has the athleticism to recover on this kind of thing. So we'll run this through and you'll see he bites up quite a few steps, and part of that is this tight end coming across, but he still bites up and he's still quite late getting back here, and that's one of the things of being inexperienced at linebacker. You take a little bit longer to diagnose these different things, but you see here he's up at the 45-yard line, and he's got this basic crosser coming sort of 10 yards behind him, and in a flash he's able to turn, get back, and he's already cutting off this basic cross that is a slot receiver that should be able to run away from him, and he's cutting that off, and you see the quarterback was thinking, I might be able to hit this over the top of Sonny Styles here, and all of a sudden, oh no, Sonny Styles is right there in that throwing window. I've got to take this check down to the running back in the flat instead. So just want to show the example of kind of range that he has, and you see it from the end zone here. Again, he takes that little step, a couple extra steps up than he needs to do, but he's able to get back, and you can see the quarterback right here. You see the stripers right down the middle of the field. He's thinking, I want to hit this receiver coming across here, but suddenly Sonny Styles is right in that lane, and you can see he's got the athleticism not just to run straight, but also bend that coverage, anticipating this guy is running across, so I need to get in that throwing window here. The quarterback's not going to throw it on him, he's going to throw it in front of him, so it takes away that throwing window, and that forces a check down. So
let me throw something at you. I thought it was pretty interesting. So while I was driving home from the draft yesterday, I listened to Linnell Willingham on the podcast, or on his radio show. I thought he brought up a good point. I don't know if you agree with it at all, but he said, due to the flexibility and the athleticism that we have with our linebackers now, with Leo Chanel, Luvu, even Jordan McGee, they're all pretty athletic, they're pretty formidable, especially Chanel and Styles. He said because of their flexibility, they could potentially be in 3-4 as a base more often, because they can potentially flex out some of their linebackers into the slot. And it'll kind of, as a result of that, being in a 3-4, that would also have a residual effect of playing better run defense too. Do you see that potentially as a good strategy? Or not a good strategy, but do you see that potentially unfolding this year?
I honestly, the drafting of Sonny Styles makes me think they might play more 4-3 because they've got multiple linebackers. But I do have some stuff later on to kind of get into that kind of fit in what they might do schematically with Deronte Jones. I think that certainly that there is a question of if you're going to play 3-4 and you have potentially 4 linebackers that you really like in Styles, Chanel, Luvu, and McGee, you're either going to have to play two of the 4 in just 2 spots and 2 of them on the bench, or maybe one of those can play on the outside, maybe in that Andrew Van Ginkel role where they convert from being a linebacker to an edge rusher. And we saw Luvu do a little bit of that last year. Leo Chanel potentially could do a little bit of that. Sonny Styles himself could do a little bit of that, but I don't know if I necessarily want him doing that stuff. I kind of feel like I just want to plug him at Mike and leave him there. So yeah, but as I say, I've got some of that scheme stuff, so we'll get to that in a little bit.
And then quick question for you, Mark. I think I know the answer to this, but I guess Caleb's asking, can you coach him up not biting on a play action so much? I think you can definitely coach that up. I guess my question to you is, was it prevalent for you, or was it kind of few and far between, I guess? And answer both of our questions, I suppose.
Yeah, it can be coached up. It's depending on what your keys are, like where your eyes are, what you're looking at, and it's studying team tendencies and knowing situations, like this team likes to go play action in this kind of situation. And a very basic and obvious example is if you're playing a Kyle Shanahan wide zone team, and they suddenly pull a guard, which you don't do in a wide zone scheme, that might be an indicator that, like, a lot of teams will say you pull a guard, that sells a play action fake. But actually, if you're a wide zone team, you suddenly pull a guard, it's actually, no, you don't normally pull a guard. This isn't a run scheme. That's a play action. And so you pick up little tendencies like that. And if you get really detailed into it, you can pick up like how the posture of offensive linemen are, and whether they're kind of weight on their front feet looking to go forward in a run block, or whether they're feeling a little bit more on their heels to set for a pass block kind of thing. So that's just stuff that I think comes with more experience playing the linebacker position, and I'm sure he'll be fine with that. He does, I don't want to say it's a common thing for him. It's something that does happen a couple of times where he can bite on those play action fakes, but for the most part, as we've seen, the kind of athletic ability that he has can get him out of it. And this is one more just to show that athletic ability. So you got a slot receiver here who's just going to run straight down the middle of the field. And again, he's going to bite up on a little bit of a play action fake, but he's going to be able to turn and run and stay with that receiver down the field. So you see him making all the calls before the snap, and then he's going to be able to turn and run. And you can see he's level with this receiver, and he's not really giving up any ground. He's able to stay with him, stay in that kind of throwing window, and he's pass that off to the safety. And then once he knows the safety's got the ball, he can peel off and start looking for elsewhere. But other stuff's happening up front. The quarterback ends up scrambling and finding a different option. But for Sonny Styles' sake, as we see, he's
this is Indiana too. It's probably a pro wide receiver, Omar Cooper or Elijah Surratt, right? One of the guys running down the field. He's running step for step with him, which is pretty impressive.
Exactly. So that's just an example of the athletic ability that he has. He's able to turn and run with guys down the seam. Someone asked, is he someone that will can cover those guys man to man? And I'm like, well, not very many linebackers can do that, if any. Had that repeat clip in there, so let's skip past that one. But yeah, so not many guys can do that, and man to man coverage is something that I just didn't see many reps of him doing it consistently. That they played a lot more zone and match stuff, which we'll get into. But yeah, the kind of man-to-man thing would be a question, but not that I think he can't do it. It's just that I haven't seen him do it, so I can't say that he can be some sort of man-to-man eliminator. But yeah, so that was one example, or a couple of examples of the athletic ability to carry things down the field, which you need, especially in this defense. One more example just here of the kind of freak athlete that he is. You've got kind of a deep out from the outside receiver. You got the tight end running out to the flat, and Styles is going to match this guy coming out to the flat. He's a little bit late. They had a bit of a miscommunication issue, but he's there. He's on top of the route, and you can see the kind of instincts, but also just the pure athleticism here. The quarterback's going to try to throw this over the top to this corner route or out route behind him, and Styles is peeking into the backfield, and he knows that this ball is not going out here. you can see the quarterback is kind of looking deeper. So he kind of starts peeling back, and he sinks back and gets his hand up, and you see the full length, and we'll see it from the end zone angle as well. Gets back and slowed it down, and he is up there, getting the hand on the ball, tipping that pass. Now his teammate is pissed because his teammate thought he had an in, but Styles doesn't to know that, and that's just an example of the incredible athleticism and length that he has to be able to go get that.
Absolutely, that's a great play.
So that is the athletic ability and coverage that he has, but he's not just a great athlete trying to play coverage. He has really good instincts and really good ability in different types of coverages. So we'll start with just basic zones, right? So this is just a very basic underneath zone for an inside linebacker. You see guys play this multiple times every game. He's just sinking to this zone. He's spot dropping. He's got his eyes in the backfield. And you've got what's going to happen is the running back's going to release, but he's going to check protection. He's going to release, and he's going to start working out to the flat. And the quarterback's going to fake that play action, and you see the running back kind of working through. You see Styles is eyeing up where the other guys are going, but he's dropping back to his spot, and he's now in his underneath zone, and he's watching the quarterback, and he has vision of this running back releasing underneath. And you can see as soon as this quarterback starts to look, okay, I'm thinking check down, you can see Styles is ready to trigger on that. As soon as the quarterback begins his throwing motion, now Styles has planted his back foot, and he's going to drive on this. And
linebacker's a dream right there, Mark. That's a dream. Yeah, perfect for him.
Here's that first down marker here, and this is where the tackle was made. And you're thinking that check down, maybe the running back is able to make that catch, make a normal linebacker miss, but Styles is able to drive on that quickly and make the tackle immediately with a nice big hit. This is another example of him playing zone coverage spot drop. So he's playing the flat. He's the flat defender here, and you've got a curl route from the outside receiver, and you've got the running back swinging to the flat. So you've got a curl flat combination, and he is the flat defender. But he does a really nice job here of using the athleticism, but using it within the system. So he's sinking out to the flat, and you can see his eyes are peeking to the running back in the backfield, but he's also peeking this outside receiver. The running back is initially staying in to protect, checking protection, so that he knows he can kind of cheat to this outside receiver, and he can sink back deeper and deeper and get under this curl route. And you can see as this receiver is about to break this off, Styles is right underneath it, making sure that is not going to get thrown. This is again a flat defender, and there is a running back releasing to the flat, but he is doing a really nice job of sinking back underneath the deeper threat, taking that away and forcing that ball to be checked down underneath to the running back. Now, as soon as that ball does get checked out, again, you've got this athletic freak that can just go, okay, I've got 10, 15 yards to try to make up here. I'm just going to make that up in 2 seconds. And now this ball does get dropped. It's kind of a bad throw, and it doesn't get completed. But you can see Styles is right there, ready to make a hit. As soon as if that running back had been able to bring that ball in, Styles was there to make that tackle. And again, the line of scrimmage is here, and Styles is there at the line of scrimmage, despite the fact that he had got sort of 10 yards deep underneath that curl route. So he was ready to make that tackle for no gain.
Real quick, I just want to give a shout out here. So Harris Senior Army, he said, I'm a huge OSU fan. I've seen people say he's not a good run defender. The Indiana game might have been the best game I've ever seen a linebacker play in college. I think that's a great point. Obviously, you want to end your college career on a high note. We all watched the national championship game there. Those Ohio State defensive stars, so the Kid McDonald, Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese. You go to watch the Ohio State defense, but I thought it was clear that Sonny Styles was the best. He had the best game of all the Ohio State defenders in that game, so it was good to see there.
Yeah, he had a really, really good game in that game. And a point that Adam Peters made was how well he progressed over the season, and you can see that when watching it. It wasn't just talk from a GM. It was actually legit. Like, you could see the progression over the course of the season, and he kind of peaked at the end of the year, and he was really, really good in those last few games. So
also one more thing, Mark, sorry to interrupt you. I also want to give a shout out to the 424 people that have been watching us throughout the show. I appreciate it, and thank you for the active chat. It's a lot of fun when other people interact and ask questions. We appreciate that
for sure. Right, so we got another example here of him working out as a flat defender, but this time he's aligned in a different spot. So he's not playing he is still a linebacker, but this is the advantage of having a guy that played safety and is a super freaky athlete, right? You can walk him out over a slot receiver. Now he is just playing as the flat defender, but so he's not matching a slot receiver man to man, but he's very comfortable in being put in these positions out here. A lot of linebackers, if you line them over a slot receiver, they'd be freaking out, not sure what to do. They'd be like, I want my protection of being in the middle of the field, knowing I have guys out there doing that work. But they move him out here, and they do this quite a lot, and he's happy to work out here. Now, he's just going to work as a flat defender. So you're going to see these guys are going to release vertically, and you're going to get the tight end chipping and working to the flat. But Sonny Styles is going to be that flat defender. He's not fully committing to this guy just straight away because he knows there's routes that could be happening behind him, and he's got his eyes on the quarterback, but he is keeping himself in position to drive on this as soon as the quarterback commits to that throw. And now the quarterback commits to that throw, you can see, right, I'm going to drive on this, and I'm going to get there just as the ball arrives. That was completed, but it was completed
minimal
for no
gain.
So it was and you know, he was right there as the ball arrived. So no real consequence there. Good play. So that was some basic zone stuff, where you can see that the instincts in zone are really good, and you get to see the athletic ability where he understands he's a good athlete, so he can sink back deeper, cover more ground, and make those windows behind him harder to get to, but knowing that he has the athleticism to get up to the line of scrimmage if the ball's checked down underneath and go make that play. So those are some nice examples of that, but that's not all that he'll be asked to do in Washington. So some examples him here doing a little bit more complex stuff. So this is again working against a slot receiver. He's going to be running a deep curl route, and what you've got is kind of effectively 4 guys over 3 receivers here, right? So Styles is the 4th guy. So as that 4th guy, as that inside linebacker, his main job here is just to wall off this 3rd receiver and make sure that he's not going to be able to break inside. And what you'll see when we get to the top of this, first of all, it's impressive that he's just so comfortable with running up the seam with a slot receiver and not giving up any ground, and he's running step for step with him. That's impressive in its own right. But then at this top of this route, he's a little bit more handsy than you would like. In the NFL, that little shove might get called, but what he's doing is he's preventing that receiver from breaking over the middle, which is his job, right? He's walling off that inside. He's not letting the receiver get to the middle of the field where they don't have as much protection, right? The protection here is you've got a slot corner and a safety over the top, so that's the protection. So he walls that off, and then once he sees this receiver starts to turn back to the quarterback, it's okay. I know he's spotting up here. I can then get my eyes back to the quarterback, and I can just sink underneath this and take this away. And the quarterback ends up trying to force this crazy throw out here where he's got 1-on-1 on the outside, but the corner's got good coverage and it's never on. So it's effectively a throwaway. So that was a nice job matching that route up the seam. This is a similar situation where you've kind of got a 3/2, and again, he's kind of in this awkward position for a lot of linebackers where they're caught in between. A lot of people call this kind of an apex defender, where he's caught in between the tackle box and the slot receiver. And what he's going to do is he's going to cover this kind of a similar responsibility. He's got to wall this guy off and make sure he's not just going to run straight crossing route over the middle of the field. So he's going to kind of deliver that guy to the safety. But this is a concept where this outside receiver is going to spot up on the outside. So what he's going to do, and we'll run this through as we see it, is, I think I drew it up. Yeah. So when he gets to this point, his eyes aren't on the quarterback, right? He's focusing on the route combination. So he's working his coverage based on what the combination is. He's not playing a specific spot, and he's not watching the quarterback to know where he's going to. He's matching his coverage to the route combination. And what he knows is that this guy's going vertical. He's got to a point where he has to go vertical and gets passed off to. He's got a corner on the outside. He's got safety inside. Those guys can bracket this receiver. Whereas this guy's spotting up underneath. He's starting to break off his route back outside. So Styles knows he needs to get out there to match that, because this corner is then, if this corner tries to match that, this guy can break out and there's a big gap there. So this corner has to peel off and cover the vertical route, which means Styles needs to be responsible for this guy. That's how a kind of a match coverage works. So he sees that and he reads it well. He gets outside, and you can see the quarterback is getting lined up, and he even starts to begin his throwing motion. He does this little pat on the ball and starts to separate. That tells you he is ready to throw that ball. Yeah. And at the last second, it's okay. Sonny Styles is getting out there. I'm not throwing that ball out there. That's a problem. So Styles takes that throw away, and the quarterback ends up having to try to scramble around and try to find a throw. and Styles does well to stay with this guy down the field, and the throw ends up being thrown out of bounds. So
and that's a great play. And I'm glad you're highlighting this particular package, because I've seen him kind of flex out in that apex rule that you're talking about. He does an excellent job with this. And I think there's one series, I think maybe Brian Baldinger kind of showed it. This Styles like anticipated, because he saw the film earlier in the series. And he kind of like, all right, they're kind of dipping into that well, I know how to stop it. My question to you is, do you kind of see him being deployed this fashion at the pro level as well, or do you think it's more of like a Leo Chanel kind of role? Because there's pros and cons, right? Obviously, Sonny Styles is probably the most superior athlete that we have in our defense right now, so you want to put him in that slot role. But are you taking him out of the middle of the defense? Is that kind of creating a concern? Not concern, but like, are you kind of pulling away from the heart of the defense? If that makes any sense?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. I think it's something that they can play around with. I think it's something that, if he's going to be the green dot, you're going to probably want him more in this role in the middle rather than out here, because it's much easier to communicate calls and checks to the rest of the defense from that spot. But that might be something that they don't necessarily want to put on a rookie's shoulders, or they might feel like he's someone that can do this stuff better than anyone else. So let's put him in that role, and maybe Chanel or Lulu or McGee can do this role a little bit better. So I think it will be they play around with it a little bit. I think they will put them out here from time to time just because they can, but I think also their schemes are going to be a little bit different, where they're not.
That makes sense.
If they are going to be similar to the Vikings, and again we'll see some of this later on, if they're going to be similar to the Vikings, everyone's just going to be on this line of scrimmage.
Usually cover zero blitzing every time, but at the same time, it's also matchup dependent here. I think in the NFL, you can't say stagnant every week to week. It's going to be different matchups. Like, they might roll it out on one play and it works, so they keep doing it until the offense can stop it. We'll see how it plays out. So it'll be interesting. But I was kind of curious your thoughts.
Yeah. So that was one play where you were seeing those kind of instincts in coverage and understanding, playing sort of match coverages. Where he understands not just his responsibility, he's not just spot dropping and watching the quarterback, he's reading route combinations and understands that, I've got defenders here and here that can take that route. I need to take this route based on how the routes are distributing. So that's a really promising thing. And those kind of match coverage principles are things that Durante Jones did a lot in Minnesota. Sorry, you got a couple comments there.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to make sure that everyone's good. So, Commander's Crew, thank you for always watching. Commander Crew is awesome. We always interact and talk on Twitter. So, thank you for watching the show today, man. He says, Mark, do you see them working him into some blitz packages? I tuned in late. I'm sorry, not sure if you discussed that yet. What are your thoughts?
We haven't got the blitz stuff yet. I do have blitz stuff lined up, so we will definitely get to that. Don't worry. Yes, I do anticipate they will get him into blitz packages, but. We'll get to that. We talked about some match principles and having those instincts to kind of do that. This is kind of another example of him playing out in that kind of apex role, kind of leading towards the slot. And this is just a basic slant flat combination, but you see the instincts here, where he's gonna initially his eyes go to the slot receiver, who was the guy inside near him, and he watches that guy work out to the flat. And he knows he's working out to the flat. So then his eyes go, okay, well, if he's working out to the flat, that probably means the number one receiver on the outside is coming inside towards me. So he gets shifts his eyes. You can quite see a strong shift from working to that receiver to working to this receiver, and you can see that's the main threat to me inside now that guy's gone out to the flat. So I will peel off and go sink underneath that route. And when he sees this guy coming in towards the middle of the field on that slant route, that's when he then turns his head and gets his eyes on the quarterback and is like, okay, I can sink under this route. I know where this receiver's going. I don't have to keep my eyes on him. I can get my eyes on the quarterback and watch for the ball while sinking under it and taking that route away. And this quarterback's looking right at him thinking, I want to throw that slant route. I want to hit it, but I can't. And I end up having to take the check down. And of course, Sonny Styles is ready to go and try to hit this check down, and he's there as soon as the ball arrives, but the ball is dropped or knocked at the line of scrimmage and incomplete. So,
and Mark, that goes along with what we were saying before about him being a cerebral player, right? He's playing zone to the utmost degree. Like, he knows he's kind of watching match packages. He's dropping back into coverage, and he's releasing he knows the assignments of his people around him to work with him. It looks pretty impressive.
Yep. And one more example of that here. So we've got He's in the middle of the field as that kind of Mike linebacker again here, and this will be something that I think he probably do a little bit more than the kind of stuff out here in Washington, but we'll see. But this is a dagger concept. Everyone runs dagger. You get this inside receiver, this outside receiver motioning into kind of a stack set. He's just going to run a big clear out down the middle of the field. Typically, this is not part of the read. This is just trying to grab every defender it possibly can, any safety or whatever, and take them away and vacate this middle of the field for this receiver on this deep dig. Now, what you'll see is Styles initially, as this receiver releases inside, he's got to try to relate to this inside receiver. But once he's gets beyond a certain point, that inside receiver becomes the responsibility of the safety. So Styles then, and we'll run it through, we'll show you, Styles will initially turn out and be like, okay, I've got to work vertically, I've got to work back vertically, but I've got my safety passed off to cover it, and we've got the safety over the top, we've got the other safety here ready to bracket this guy running deep, so we can let those guys take care of that threat's covered. But I know this guy's running deep, and I know when I get a deep kind of clearing route, there's probably a dig coming in behind it on a dagger concept. So his eyes go from this receiver to this receiver, and he knows that dig route's coming. So what's he going to do? He's going to position himself, and you can see him working into that throwing window. Like, he knows he's not quite deep enough, so he's gaining depth, but he's also really alert to, I'm not just going to run to the receiver. I know that receiver is breaking inside. I'm going to run to where that ball is going to be thrown. I'm going to stop him from getting that ball. And so he works into that throwing window where he knows that that's coming over the middle, and that means the quarterback's going to have to try to take this shot down the middle of the field instead of the, what the intended design of the play was, which was to be hit this guy over the middle. Now, the quarterback nearly manages to hit that, and they get a little bit lucky, but that is, here and there. Again, it's just to show that it's more good instincts and understanding of coverage of, not just his role, but the roles of guys around him, where his help is, where the guys that he's going to be passing off routes to, which routes are threats to him, and a wider understanding of route combinations. So,
and looking at that, Mark, it was impressive. He was 25 yards down the field, but he wasn't flustered. He was under control, and it was Commander Cruz kind of alluded to it as well. Like, you could tell, he had that change of direction in his back pocket, so he was kind of watching and kind of staying with the wide receiver. It would have been a potential breakup, which was very impressive for a linebacker being downfield like that.
Yeah. So I think the limit is sky high for him as a coverage defender, and I think the potential as a run defender as well is very high. But I think that we're just seeing that he's further ahead as a coverage defender at this point, and there's a lot of different things you can do with him from that standpoint. Now, we were talking earlier a little bit ago about him potentially as a blitzer. This is probably the most raw part of his game. He didn't do it a ton. They kind of preferred to do it with Arvell Reese, which is understandable given Reese kind of wants to be more of an edge guy. Sonny Styles has the athletic ability to do that, but we haven't seen him do it consistently. And he is a little bit more raw in this. Like, he doesn't have an established set of pass rush moves, right? He's kind of more just similar to what we saw with Frankie Louvu a little bit in his first year here in Washington, where it's, I'm going to go at 100 miles an hour. I'm going to run into guys with a lot of power and hair on fire, and I might run over them. And this is an example of that. So we've got him here again over the slot. This is a tight end fullback, I think, and he's going to go in motion across the formation, and then they're going to run a little play action fake where he's actually going to sit back across, and he's going to try to block Sonny Styles. And you're going to see what happens to him as he tries to block Sonny Styles. Comes back across, and Sonny Styles is just going to run straight through him and pressure the quarterback. And you'll see from the end zone angle, the fullback, tight end, whatever he is, actually kind of has to just kind of hold on. You can see he grabs his shoulder pads and is like, well, if I'm getting knocked off my feet, I'm bringing you down with me. I'm going to protect my quarterback. I'm going to take a holding pull. And you can see this ref here is already ready to throw that flag, and he does throw that flag. His teammates make the play, so they don't give up anything, but they do also get the flag. So really nice play from Styles there. And then one more here where he's blitzing up the middle. So again, there's no, I don't want to say no, but there's not a refined pass rush technique. There's not a great plan where it's, I'm using this move to set up this move. And there shouldn't be, because he's not someone that blitzes and rushes particularly often. He's a guy that if you're blitzing an off-ball linebacker, you're ideally getting them matched up with a running back, and that's something that Dan Quinn has done a great job of throughout his career. You know, Micah Parsons, his first year in the league, he played off-ball linebacker, and they got him matched up on the running back a ton, and then they kind of developed him as a pass rusher on the side, and that's when they started moving him towards the edge. And we saw here in Washington, again, Frankie Louvu in 2024, it was when he was blitzing off the ball, he was getting matched up on running backs, and he was just running over those guys. But occasionally, you're going to get matched up on offensive linemen. And when you face those offensive linemen, they are much more prepared to take you on, and that it's going to be much harder to run those guys over. Now, occasionally, like you'll see here, he can still, take that momentum. So he's going to rush up the middle here. He's going to get a green light to blitz, and you're going to see this center is sliding to the left side of the line. They're expecting potentially a blitz off this side, so he's sliding that way. And what that means is, I think Styles initially is actually watching the running back, and then he sees the running back goes to protect. So you can see he's taking a big step this way, mirroring the running back. But then he sees the running back is staying in to protect Reese on the edge, so he adjusts and starts rushing towards the center. Now the center is now sliding this way, and suddenly Styles is rushing to him from this way. So the center is a little bit off balance, so that gives Styles a bit of an advantage here. But you can see, just the raw power and athleticism. He's just going to go and pop him, drive him backwards, and run through that block and go deliver a strong pressure, which the quarterback ends up throwing the ball away from. But that is kind of about as good as you're going to get from him right now. As I say, there's no clear developed pass rush plan. There's no varied techniques. There's no, I'll club one move and I'll rip and swim the next move and what have you. There's no side swipes or anything like that. It's very much, I'm going to run at this guy and try to run over him. And sometimes he'll get it right, and sometimes he won't. And more often than not, if he's facing a running back, he'll get it right. If he's facing an offensive lineman, he probably won't. So
that's part of the evolution, right? So he had 2 years as a linebacker, started off as a safety. What I do like the fact is he has that pedigree of Matt Patricia's kind of developing as a linebacker. So he has that pro mentality going in. We still have some refinement to do at the next level too.
Yeah, exactly. And that's something that the benefit of Washington's coaching staff, and particularly Dan Quinn, has a lot of experience of. As I talked about, Michael Parsons, when he first came into the league, was an off-ball linebacker. That's how they started him, developing him as a pass rusher, was blitzing him from the off-ball spots and getting him matched up on running backs, and then developing his pass rush moves as he would get matched up on more and more offensive linemen, and so that there is a precedent there that Dan Quinn understands how to develop these guys as pass rushers as well. So I think he has the potential to do it. I just think it's something that he wasn't asked to do a lot, so it's not something he's practiced and learned to do yet. And I think that will probably come with time. And I think it's something that they will be looking for him to do as well, because this defense that we're going to look at just a little bit at the end here, where Durante Jones is coming from that Brian Flores defense, which is very, very aggressive, especially with those linebackers. And this is where you see that that question of the playing 3-4-4-3 kind of thing, how you distribute what you want from these linebackers is going to be really interesting to see play out. And the roles of these linebackers, you've got two edge rushers here. I think this is Greenard and this is Van Ginkel here. So they're edge rushers, but Van Ginkel was a linebacker, right? So he transitioned to being an edge rusher, or he was an edge rusher that transitioned to being a linebacker, and kind of back and forth. And you've got your two inside linebackers lined up in the A gaps here, and you quite often see this look a lot. Mike Zimmer made it really popular in the NFL, but what the Vikings do on this play is a simulated pressure. So they've got 7 guys up on the line of scrimmage. They've got 2 defensive tackles here. You got your 2 linebackers, and you got your 2 edge rushers, and then you got a safety here on the edge as well. So you got 7 guys on the line of scrimmage. It could be that we blitz all of them. It could be we blitz none of them. It could be anything in between. What it's going to be is we're going to rush the front with the inside 4. So the 2 defensive tackles are going to widen to the edge, and we're going to get our 2 inside linebackers are going to blitz on a cross stunt, and then these 2 edge rushers are going to drop off into coverage. And this is why it was important to get good athletes in Washington, where guys like Odafe Owe and Caleb Von Chase on the edge are athletic enough to be able to do this. And this is why, if we talk about a Leo Chenal potentially trying to do this Van Ginkel role, Or again, even Sonny Styles potentially could line up in this spot. You can move these guys around and be really versatile with them. But the point is that any of these guys on any given play could rush or they could drop into coverage. And that is what makes the scheme so hard to defend.
Because I was going to ask you, like, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mark. Sorry, that was my thought process. Like watching you get through that, I was like, I'm curious how Washington would deploy this. Is it like, am I looking at that little like that cross dog in the middle? Is that going to be Chanel and Styles coming through the middle to the A gaps, or is that going to be maybe Luvu? Like you said Owe and Chase, and that's pretty interesting on the outside for Van Ginkel and Greenard. Like, I mean, I guess it is fully interchangeable. You can do a bunch of different things. And I guess they'll be tinkering with that over the summer. I was just kind of curious. Like, do you have any initial thoughts on where, or like you have no idea yet? We're kind of tinkering with it right now.
Yeah, so I think for specifically this kind of look, like Greenard is an edge rusher, right? He is just a different edge rusher. Van Ginkel is an edge rusher, but he's also a guy that is very versatile and can drop into coverage. They don't have a guy that, and this is a very unique profile of player that can do the dropping into the coverage very competently and can also still rush pretty competently. That Washington has a bunch of guys that, you know, are athletic enough, like an Owe or a Chase on, to rush off the edge and are in theory athletic enough to drop into coverage but don't do it very often. And they have the Chanels and the Luvus that can drop into coverage frequently because they have a history of being a linebacker, but they don't have the experience of being an edge rusher where they need to rush off the edge and work against offensive tackles and win as a pass rusher. So they have guys that can do one either or. They don't necessarily have guys that can do both. And that is something that, you know, if this defense was going to be here, if it was Daronte Jones's team or Brian Flores' team for the next 5 years, maybe Sonny Styles would be turned into Van Ginkel because that's a very key role in this defense. But I don't think that's going to. I think you'll find Sonny Styles will be here, and it'll be Chanel or Luvu here, and it'll probably. They might not necessarily run this exact scheme the same way, but the idea here is that you can move these guys around and run them different ways. And the brilliance of it is you're rushing just 4, but what's going to happen is these tackles are going to end up blocking no one. The guards are going to be trying to block the defensive tackles because they're thinking, well, normally I block the defensive tackles, and what you're going to get is the running back's going to have to step up and pass protect with the center on this cross dog stunt, and that means you're going to be basically getting 6 guys having to protect against 4, so you're getting extra guys in coverage and less receivers running routes. And you're going to get a nice matchup where the running back's having to try to block a cross dog stunt, which is really tough for them to block. And what you see is, you know, they run that cross dunk really well. The running back and the center can't pass it off because running backs typically aren't good in pass protection, and you get that free rusher here. Now, Caleb does a nice job. Caleb Williams does a nice job running around and avoiding a sack, and then screws it up at the end. But that's kind of here or there. That's one example of how they can put both guys up on the line of scrimmage and blitz both inside linebackers. What they can also do, and what they also do quite a lot, is they won't always put them in the A gaps. They'll sometimes put both linebackers in the B gaps just to show a different look. And they will do quite a lot of this kind of read blitzing, where they are reading the way that the line is sliding. And I think I've shown this play in these 2 plays a couple times on these live shows before, but I'll just break it down quickly again. Basically, both these guys are reading which way the center's going. If the center goes towards them, they drop into coverage, which means the running back has to then step up and block the other guy, right? The idea is you're forcing the running back to stay in to protect, and you're getting him matched up. So you're getting the benefit of having an extra guy in coverage and forcing the running back to stay in and match up on a linebacker. So this is the kind of schemes where you benefit, especially a guy like Sonny Styles, as we talked about, isn't necessarily the best blitzer yet. He's not great at taking on offensive linemen, but if you're letting him run at a running back, you might well run over him. So what you're going to get here, I think it's Eric Wilson is going to, I think they're going to slide to this side. So this linebacker is going to drop back. This linebacker is going to step up. That is what it is. And then running back is going to have to try to pick up that, and you're going to see that running over him. But you've also, so there's 2 aspects here that both of them apply to Styles, right? You get one linebacker on a running back trying to run him over and to create pressure, which this guy does a nice job of. But you've also got the other linebacker has to drop off into coverage, and he has to kind of sink underneath this inside receiver. I think this is Devonta Smith running up the seam, right? So he's got to sink back into that. And you see Jalen Hurts gets to kind of top of his drop here, and he wants to throw this, but he's got a linebacker suddenly sinking back into that lane. So this is, again, something that Sonny Styles can do really well, is, as we've seen, be able to sink back into that kind of seam window for a receiver running up the seam and run with them pretty easily because he's such a good athlete. So this is something that I think Styles can do really well. This is something that I think Styles will need to improve on. But if you're getting that matchup consistently on the running back, you're doing pretty well. And he bursts through and generates some pressure there, and they eventually get the sack. And this was the exact same scheme, but run later in the game. And again, you can see all these guys initially stepping forward, but both these guys are reading what center's doing. The center tries to disguise it, and they run a little bit of a different protection. But eventually they realize, actually, this center is sliding this way, which means this linebacker is going to drop off into coverage. And again, this linebacker gets matched up on the running back. He runs him over and makes a big pressure and eventually gets the sack. I think I've got the end zone angle on this. Because this is, again, where Styles is going to benefit, or where this scheme is going to benefit from having a Sonny Styles in there. If they don't slide to Styles, if they slide to Styles' side, you can see this linebacker is actually responsible for covering up over here. He's got to cover a lot of ground to get there, right? Not every linebacker can do this. Sonny Styles has the athletic ability to cover that ground and get over there. You can see he's kind of a bit short of where he needs to be, but he's trying his best to get over there. Unfortunately, the pressure from the scheme does get to Jalen Hurts before that means anything. But you can see those linebackers are having to have that range to be able to line up on the line of scrimmage and get back deep. That's something that Styles should be very good at straight away. And I think this is the last one. This is the last one. So we've seen that they might line up both linebackers on the line of scrimmage and blitz them. They might line up both linebackers on the line of scrimmage and have them read, so one blitzes and one drops. And they might have both linebackers line up on the line of scrimmage and they bluff it, and you get this big protection change from the Cowboys here. You'll see this as Dak feels like, oh, I'm getting a big blitz, I need to change the protection. And it's all a bluff because both of these guys are going to drop off into coverage. And you'll see this here. Dak's like, oh no, we've got this blitz, I need to change the protection. You go there, you'll change all of this. We need to get this picked up. And then what happens? Both those guys drop into the coverage. It's a three-man rush. And Dak is like, I'm going to get pressured. I need to throw this ball quickly to this tight end over the middle. And then as he's releasing it, it's, oh, wait, I thought this guy was blitzing. I didn't see him drop into coverage. And it's nearly an interception, right?
Yeah.
So that is the level that we're dealing with what Brian Flores and Durante Jones did in Minnesota with this scheme. And that is where you have these linebackers that's why you need these linebackers to be flexible, to be able to blitz and go forward, but also to have the range to go backwards, because on any given play, they could be doing either one. And it's not necessarily guaranteed that they know before the snap which one's going to be good rushing forward and which one's going to be good dropping backwards, because they can read that at the line of scrimmage. So I think Styles is going to fit that really well. I think Leo Chenal is going to fit that really well. Frankie Louvu does some of that pretty well already. So they have a lot of different options for that. But obviously we're focusing on Sonny Styles being that kind of first round pick. And I think that's going to be a quite common thing. We'll see him on that line of scrimmage quite a lot. And I think, the range that he has to drop back off into coverage should really help this system and this scheme work well in Washington.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mark. That's a very comprehensive breakdown. I think we nailed it. I think we looked at his blitz packages, the fact that he's a cerebral player, the fact that he can drop back into coverage, the fact that he can pass along different coverages to other defenders and his counterparts are fantastic as well. So I think Sonny Styles is definitely a great piece. It's going to be really fun watching him being deployed by Durante Jones and Leo Chenal this fall. Guys, thank you for the 570 of you guys watching the show. The comments were awesome. I really appreciate the different questions that were coming up there. Mark and I will collaborate. We'll talk offline. Obviously, the NFL draft is going to come on again tonight, as well as Saturday. It's going to be hard for Mark to kind of break down film within 24 hours, so give him a little bit of patience. But we'll be in touch. We'll bring some film work to you guys moving forward. Mark, is there any last minute things you want to say about Sonny Styles or the draft at all? Or
no, I just think people should be excited. It's an exciting pick. I know it's not necessarily the sexy offensive weapon that people were hoping for with either Love or Tate or Tyson or whoever, but I think it's someone that I in my article that I wrote today, I said that Adam Peters with his first draft walked out of it with a franchise quarterback, and I think in his third draft he's walking out of it with potentially the franchise quarterback of the defense. I think he's someone that could really be a franchise cornerstone along with Jaden Daniels. So really impressive overall player.
Absolutely. I think the takeaway with Sonny Styles is that he's basically a quarterback on the defense as well. We have that quarterback on offense with Jaden Daniels. We have that it's kind of, they're mirroring each other, right? Like supreme athletes, cerebral, hard workers on both sides of the ball. It's gonna be kind of fun watching them grow. Commander Scoop, very great compliment. I appreciate it. That was awesome. Every fan needs to see this. And then Mark, if you're up for it, I don't think you're a comp guy, but if someone, if someone asks you, I don't know if you're into this. Caleb said before y'all end, what's Sonny's comp to you, Mark? You can say you're not a comp guy. You can say whatever you want. But that's this question over here.
Yeah, I'm not really a comp guy. I know everyone comps him to Fred Warner. I just haven't studied the 49ers defense enough in detail to be like, I know Fred Warner's game inside and out to make that fair comparison. So that's one everyone throws out, but it's not one that I can personally make because I haven't studied enough of the other guys to be like, yeah, he reminds me of this guy. So I'm not a huge comp guy, and I like to say he's his own guy. He's a pretty unique guy in that respect as well. Like not many guys are his style of athlete, and I think he's just his own guy.
Sonny Styles is 101. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate that. Fantastic. We'll be in touch, guys. So follow Mark and all of his work on Substack. I know you might not have the full film breakdown, but I'm sure you're gonna have a recap of the draft pretty soon over this weekend too. So definitely give him a follow there. We'll be in contact next week. We'll have some video. Follow G Carmi 21, George Carmi, Mark Bullock. We're out. Enjoy your night, guys. Peace.